Hi, I'm Ali, and this is my friend Tony's shop, The King of Vintage. I used to work for Tony many years ago, and then just sort of came back and joined him again when he opened this location, and we've been here for about 4 years now. The shop is called The King of Vintage because Tony really fancies himself the king. I've always loved vintage clothes personally. I've been wearing vintage clothes since I was 12. And when I first moved to this country 16 years ago, I used to work for one of Tony's other shops. So when he opened the location in the Cascades, I've come to work for him here. When you do what you do well and you're one of the best in town at it, like it is definitely that word of mouth that keeps us going. I think Portsmouth is, I always say cosmopolitan enough. I'm from New York City, so obviously coming here, it's like, a bit of a difference. But there is a very sort of independent ethos about Portsmouth, and especially South Sea. There is like, an indie vibe, there is a small business vibe, and there is something like slightly alternative. So I think this is the perfect location to do vintage clothing. And it's growing in popularity at the moment, especially with the kind of stuff that we sell. A lot of like our pieces come over from Texas, from the US. So these are all authentic American vintage pieces. And I think we're a pretty stark contrast to fast fashion, which is all around us, obviously, in the mall, in the city center. I think there's a statistic that's something around 70% of fast fashion winds up in a landfill. And this is a problem. It's a problem for the planet, it's a problem for the industry. Back in the old days, clothes used to be made out of natural fibers like cotton, right? So the ragman could come and get your clothes and that could be recycled. Well, we're making everything out of plastic nowadays and that can't be recycled as easily. So yeah, it's a real scar on our planet and people should shop smart. You can still wear stylish clothes at a reasonable price and look good and help the planet doing it. I do have some favorite items in the shop. I'm really super into the 1970s, and I do love this 1970s box jacket from the US. It's made of deerskin, which is something that you don't normally find nowadays or in this country, so I think that's a really, really special piece. I also really love the 90s because I was there, and these bits are great with the wool and the suede. I mean, fantastic. It's just something about style. I mean, if you buy a good piece that's well designed, it's always going to be in fashion. So there's no such thing as a trend when it comes to vintage. It's, if it's good, right? It's always in. I've always liked, I guess, like the more unique alternative styles that vintage allows. I was 12 years old in New Jersey buying 1970s clothes at the thrift store, and maybe that comes from my mother's influence. She was a very stylish lady, she still is. But I've always liked a little bit of a flair of glamour, a flair of, the unique. I have a huge vintage hat collection, which I'll never be able to wear anywhere because nobody wears hats anymore. But yeah, I love the design, I love the art, and I like the quality. For folks who don't like to shop vintage, really to each their own, but I don't think there should be a stigma in wearing secondhand. Maybe that used to be a thing for people didn't want to be seen as being, like lower financially or whatever it is, but that's just simply not the case. I mean, I don't think there is any stigma in wearing secondhand. There's some great pieces out there and even great designer pieces that most folks wouldn't be able to afford coming right off the rack. Who's gonna spend $3 grand on a coat from Fendi, but you might spend 140 on it, wouldn't you?